Hey guys, this will be your lecture on Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. I'm not going to say too much about the Wife of Bath because I want those of you who have not yet completed the discussion to think about it yourselves, but I've already seen what a couple people have said, and I want to point out some important things about her so that you're at least going in the right direction. Let me just say this much. Chaucer absolutely thinks highly of the Wife of Bath. She has an excellent character. If you go to page 274 in our main textbook, the left-hand column, let's see, the third full paragraph down, let's see, go down, well, I'll just begin reading from the third full paragraph. Chaucer drew his pilgrims from nearly all walks of medieval society. The knight personified much that was noble and honorable in the chivalric code. His bravery could not be questioned, but he was also a mercenary and cruel to his enemies. So the knight, although there are some good things about him, is cruel. Right, there's some problems, and Chaucer is absolutely writing a social commentary in the Canterbury Tales. Specifically, the social commentary focuses on the church at the time, which is, of course, the Catholic Church. This is the Middle Ages. Certain representatives of the church are also somewhat skeptically treated. The prioress, the head of a convent, and from the upper class, is more concerned about her refined manners and polished language than the state of her soul. So, obviously right there, that does not illustrate a real concern for the spiritual life, right? Obviously the prioress is a fictional character, but compare her to someone like Saint Teresa, a real human, not a fictional person, who lived after Chaucer, by the way, and think about that. Right? Similarly, the monk lives a life of the flesh and enjoys good food, fine wines, and expensive clothing. Okay, a monk, specifically among all kinds of holy people, monks of any, not just Christians, but of any religion, are supposed to live in an ascetic lifestyle, asceticism, right? A renunciate, one who renounces the hedonistic material pleasures of this material world and focuses his entire existence on enlightenment, on the spiritual life, right? Who gives up all food and drink except for just enough to keep him alive so that he can continue on his spiritual journey. But monks, standardly of any religion, did not get married, did not have sex, did not have children, did not eat and drink wantonly. Right now, keep in mind, the Christian monks in the Western world did create beer, but that was not because they were interested in getting drunk as such. It's because the water was so terrible and poisonous that the only way to make it safe to drink was by fermenting it. And whatever happens in the process of, well, I guess at the time it was mead and not beer as we know it today, but either way. So, again, think about that. The friar seems the very opposite of his sworn ideals. He's eager to hear a confession for a fee, and he never goes among the poor or aids the sick. That doesn't sound very Christ-like, okay? Among other things, Chaucer is absolutely writing this as a satire, right? As some kind of social commentary on the hypocrisy and corruption of the Catholic Church during the Middle Ages, during the time that he was alive. Now, If we go down a few more lines, he does say something about the country parson, who is really quite a noble man. Among the secular travelers, and by secular here, we mean somebody who isn't employed by the church in any way. The most vivid is the wife of Bath, a widow 5 times over, so she's had, many men. She knows how to deal with them. This jolly woman is full of life and loves to talk. She's been on many pilgrimages and not only knows about foreign places, but also has a keen insight into people. Right there, you would need to make an amazing argument to suggest that the tone of those sentences describing the wife of Bath are negative, or is negative. Those sentences are not negative. The tone is not negative. The wife of Bath is an excellent character, and Chaucer himself says so. Remember that the wife of Bath is a Christian, right? She wears the what is that? The wimple, right? The hat that nuns often wore at the time. She goes to church. That's in the prologue about her. If anybody tries to cut in line while she's waiting to get into church, they will have to deal with her wrath, right? She won't take any of that. So the wife of Bath is a deeply independent woman, and of course she's Christian. I mean, you kind of had to be at the time, no matter what. But she, the illustration is that she does take her Christianity seriously. Now let's look at the prologue itself. I'm going to point out a few things about her. So this is on page 292, left-hand column, right toward the top there. A worthy woman from beside Bath city was with us, somewhat deaf, which was a pity. In making cloth, she showed so great a bent that she bettered those of Ypres and of Ghent. Okay, so right there we know that she's a talented seamstress. That's already something good about her. She has a skill. She has a talent. That's important. Go down 4 more lines. Her kerchiefs, right, what she'd wear over her hair, were of finely woven ground. And we get some other suggestions that she is well-dressed, right? And not that she has a lot of money. There's no suggestion here that she is some deeply wealthy woman, that she cares about acquiring wealth, which is important because the desire for the acquisition of wealth is decidedly unchristian, even in the Bible itself, but certainly according to Chaucer. Right? Those who want to devote their lives to the holy purpose thereby do not devote their lives to money. And she has not done that. Now, she has money because she has some money, because she had all these husbands who've left her whatever in their wills. But she dresses nicely. She takes care of herself. She has pride in herself. She has integrity. And those kinds of characteristics are consistently brought out. Now, look at the line. Let's see, maybe 10 lines into the discussion of the wife of Bath in the prologue. A worthy woman all her life. A worthy woman. Okay, so immediately in your discussion, in your response, and in your exam, if I ask you something about the wife of Bath, about her character, your response needs to be positive. If it isn't positive, if you have some serious criticisms about her, then you have not read our texts very closely. So you're going to lose points if you say something about that. I know that most of you aren't watching this, and maybe I can think of 3 of you who might be watching this. and maybe you'll get a 10 out of 10 on this question. So we know that she has traveled quite a bit, which illustrates her wisdom, experience. We already know that she has a keen insight into people, which means she's observant, she's intelligent, and she doesn't appear to use that keen insight to be cruel, to take advantage of anyone. And we certainly don't see anything negative about the wisdom and the intelligence of the wife of Bath in her tale. So you have to consider that the tale itself is being told by her, which means it reflects her character. Now, unfortunately, we're not reading the other tales from the other pilgrims during the pilgrimage. If you actually read all of the Canterbury Tales, which is awesome, I love them, they're amazing, you really get... So you get an insight into the pilgrims from the prologue, where they're all being described by Chaucer, but their tales make their characters even fuller. And the Wife of Bath's tale is certainly the most popular, and it really does illustrate extraordinary wisdom and virtue. So, obviously this woman is one to look up to. And as she says, or as he says, the last 3 lines of her description, in company, she liked to laugh and chat. She's a nice, friendly, personable human. She likes to talk to people, get to know people. That means that she's not ignorant. She's tolerant. She's curious. She wants to learn. These are all excellent qualities. And she's nice. She laughs. People like people who are happy. So, again, all of this is positive. Clearly Chaucer thinks positively of the Wife of Bath. And she knew the remedies for love's mischances, an art in which she knew the oldest dances. So she knows how to get over a broken heart, the remedies, the cure for love's mischances, when things don't go well. So the younger gals and men who are trying each other out and it doesn't work, she's able to say, look, I've had 5 husbands and more boyfriends before that. I know, don't worry, you are gonna get over it. You're gonna meet somebody else. Everything is fine. She knows what she's doing. She has real insight into the world, into herself, into virtue. And those things are all illustrated, not only by the prologue, which Chaucer is right. Well, Chaucer wrote all of it, but it's from Chaucer's point of view, as it were, the narrator's point of view, but also from her story, which is... she's the narrator of her own story, the Wife of Bath's tale. So that comes from her. She made it up, is the idea. The things that she pulls out of it as good and virtuous are things that we should all be able to get behind. So, once again, everything about the Wife of Bath is positive, positive, positive. If you happen to be watching this and you already wrote your discussion... well, you may lose some points on it then, because I want to see deeply critical examination of material. That is absolutely imperative in a college setting. And I know it's difficult, but either way, I have to expect that from you. Okay, now let's go to the tale. Now I'm not going to go over the... plot at all, because you need to just read it. But you'll notice, so one of the things that, well, okay, the 2 main things that you want to pay attention to for the exam are the implicit discussion of retribution versus rehabilitation in prison or punishment or whatever. And you want to think about the characterization of the women in the story. So first I'll start out with, well, I'll start out with the retribution versus rehabilitation. So we know that the knight raped a young girl. Right? That's the main event that has occurred that sets everything in motion. The king, who, by the way, if you look on page 295, which is where it begins, where the tale begins, the right-hand column, you'll notice that although the king is referred to, he doesn't actually have any dialogue. There's nothing in quotation marks that the king says, but the queen does have dialogue. She speaks, and we read her, as it were, right? We read her spoken words. We only read about what the king said. We don't read what the king said. Already, I want you to think about that. Now, the king says, just put him to death. Chop his head off, right? Hang him in the town square. And the queen says, wait a minute, honey. Let's think about this. Will you give me the opportunity to decide the fate of this knight? And the king does. And the queen doesn't just see the situation in this sort of black and white manner as the king does. She says, listen, we're going to do something else. Instead of just killing you, which means that no matter what kind of person you may have been in the future, you're just going to be gone, because you'll be dead. And it will only instill fear in other people, men, whatever, who are thinking of raping. How about instead I try to teach you a lesson? What if instead of just killing you and making you an example for others, which, by the way, statistically, I'm not going to say anything about the death penalty here as such. I think there are some problems with it today in the 21st century in the United States. By the way, I think I've said this before, the United States is the only first world country to still have the death penalty. That's interesting. And there are a number of things to be said about it, but statistically speaking, there's at least no hard evidence that the death penalty deters crime in future potential criminals. Now, there's also no hard evidence that it doesn't deter crime, because the only way to find out is by knocking on everybody's door and saying, so if you saw that, Ted Bundy was put to death, and he was, by the way, were you thinking about maybe murdering people and then you saw that Ted Bundy had been killed and then you decided not to? Okay, there's no way to gather that data. Who is going to say, yeah, I was thinking about killing my mother and I had it all planned out, and then I saw, that Ted Bundy had been killed and put to death by the state, and I wasn't interested in that happening to me, so I decided against it. Yeah. So put me down on your little chart there of statistics. Okay, you can't gather the data, so right now the data is inconclusive. Nevertheless, it looks like a rehabilitation, if it is possible to attain, is always